Good evening. Tonight, guns in America, the #1 issue in the country. 1 week after the mass shooting at Sandy Hook, the NRA finally breaks its silence. We'll get to that in a moment. President Obama and communities across America paused for a moment of silence this morning for the 20 children and 7 adults murdered by Adam Lanza. President Obama's calling for a ban on assault weapons. Democrats plan to introduce a bill seeking just that. But today, the NRA offered a rather different solution, publicly breaking the silence. It's silence for the first time since the massacre. The NRA proposed a sweeping and controversial plan to have armed guards at every school in the nation.
The truth is that our society is populated by an unknown number of genuine monsters. People that are so deranged, so evil, so possessed by voices and driven by demons that no sane person can ever possibly comprehend them. They walk among us every single day. And does anybody really believe that the next Adam Lanza isn't planning his attack on a school? Since when did the gun automatically become a bad word? A gun in the hands of a Secret Service agent protecting our president isn't a bad word. A gun in the hands of a soldier protecting the United States of America isn't a bad word. And when you hear your glass breaking at 3 a.m. and you call 911, you won't be able to pray hard enough for a gun in the hands of a good guy to get there fast enough to protect you. So, why is the idea of a gun good when it's used to protect the president of our country or our police, but bad when it's used to protect our children in our schools?
Now, to be clear, this wasn't a press conference, it was a statement. No questions were taken, but that doesn't mean there weren't any interruptions.
NRA, stop killing our children. It's the NRA and the assault weapons that are killing our children, not armed bullshit.
2 protesters accused the NRA of having blood on its hands. I'll talk exclusively to one of those in a moment. Wayne LaPierre, the NRA's executive vice president, paused but continued. He blamed the violence on video games, the media, just about on everything, actually, apart from guns. He said that Americans deal more with the mentally ill. He said that the news media was consumed with hate for the NRA, but it's his proposal to have armed guards at public schools in America that is stirring the most debate. Well, joining me now is Jeffrey Kennedy, who's the president and CEO of the Harlem Children's Zone. Jeffrey, let me lay my cards on the table off the top here. I watched that press conference, or that statement, with mounting horror and anger. But I was also aware that a lot of people in America would have watched it and said, he's right.
Yeah. People will say that the answer to every escalating sort of violent act in America is the ability to use more violence to counter that, and it never stops. So you're going to give a security guard a regular gun against someone who has an assault weapon. So when the assault weapon overpowers the regular gun, then you give the security guard in the school an assault weapon. Where does this end? It doesn't end. That was the most irresponsible and I think a hurtful response to an American tragedy that I have heard, and he should be ashamed of himself to come and tell the American people, I'm not going to do anything reasonable, not one thing. I don't care if it was 100 kids killed. I would have said the exact same thing. Let's get more people with guns and surround our kids. We have to, as a nation, examine our souls and say, how did we come to this?
It was really, I found horrifying, because I watched the whole thing, and at the end I thought 2 things are going to happen here. One, the NRA is going to get a lot of people joining it as a result of this. Secondly, gun sales, particularly assault weapons, are going to rocket because of this. This was a promotional tool, this statement, for encouraging more Americans to go and arm themselves. And it really cut to what I think the NRA and other gun lobbyists in America do. They play to fear. They play to people's fear, and they commercialize it, and they sell more weapons on the back of that. And that is why it's shameful.
It is shameful because they can give you not one logical reason that an American citizen needs an assault weapon. Not one. They aren't good for hunting. They serve no purpose. In the hands of someone really mentally ill, They can do damage that is so, it's inconceivable to us. And we've got to put an end to that. And this is one of those issues, Piers, where I think the American people have to say, some people you just can't sort of have a rational discussion with. We've got to take this matter into our own hands and protect our children. And I think that's what this country, that's what I think the president, I think the speaker, I think Senator Reid, I think folks have to come together and say, let's put children first and let's not deal with people who are just, I think, irresponsible in their responses to a tragedy in this country.
I mean, we've covered this every night since the Sandy Hook massacre, and we also did the same after Aurora and others, and it's been this escalation, as you say, in the scale of these atrocities. And I've been getting angry this week with some of the gun rights people that come on the show, very angry, and I've been accused of being rude and, you know, and all the rest of it. And I'm like, if you can't get angry over the cold-blooded murder of 20 school children aged 6 and 7 years old, when the hell do you get angry?
Well, that's the problem.
When do enough Americans say, enough, this is not going to continue? And by the way, what he didn't mention today, Wayne LaPierre, he didn't mention anything about assault weapons other than to try and play down what they are. He didn't mention high-capacity magazines. He didn't explain why the killer in Aurora needed 100 bullets in a magazine. What is the purpose other than mass slaughter? Nor did he mention background checks. 40% of all gun trades in America now, there is no background check. Had he done any of those things,
any reasonable,
then someone would have said, you know what,
right,
he's making some good points. Right. There was nothing, was there?
That's right. And see, so a guy like me who thinks there's just too many handguns in America and we need to do something about it, they would consider me extreme, right? But this was a moment for a rational sort of compromise that says to America, okay, guys, maybe this is too far. Maybe you can't allow a person to come in with 100 bullets and slaughter people, our children. Maybe we should stop that. The fact that they did not make even the most minor compromise or to give our president and our Congress the confidence to say that this is extreme. This kind of extremism will destroy America. We're already a country awash in handguns. Everywhere you go, our citizens are being slaughtered. When do folks stand up and have the courage to say to the NRA, you are wrong, we're not tolerating this anymore? Real, reasonable gun legislation is what America has to do.
I would be curious as to how many members of the NRA actually agreed with what Wayne LaPierre said today, because I can't believe that rational Americans do not see the need, after the last 3 mass shootings in the last 6 months, have all involved the AR-15 assault weapon. It's a military weapon. He said this, the media call semi-automatic firearms machine guns. They claim these civilian semi-automatic firearms are used by the military. They tell us the .223 rounds, one of the most powerful rifle calibers. All factually untrue. What he's basically saying is, look, these are fine, these weapons. The AR-15, when it's been modified by someone who knows what they're doing, can fire 4 to 6 bullets a second and 100 bullets in 1 minute. These are killing machines. They are machine guns.
Look, we're allowing people to have higher sort of firepower than our police. You do not see police officers walking around with weapons like this, because these weapons are used to fight in wars with soldiers. There's no excuse for this, Piers. There's no rational explanation for allowing this to go on. The NRA has bullied our Congress. Let's just be honest. Yeah. They have bullied them with money. They have threatened that they're going to put them out of office. And we have people in our Congress who so want to cling to their office that they are prepared to sacrifice American children. And it's about time someone called them out on it and just said, stop it, guys. These are our kids. We've got to fight for them. And if it means, you know what, we get out of office, we get out of office, but we save this country. We're going over a moral cliff, right? You just can't morally justify the slaughter of American children. And by the way, 350 kids a week are shot or murdered in this country of ours. That's every week. That's 14 classrooms, and no one does anything about it. It's like that's normal in America. That's an outrage.
I couldn't agree more. Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Piers.
Good to see you. The NRA statement today was interrupted by 2 protesters. Medea Benjamin was one of them, the co-director of Code Pink, joins me now exclusively. Welcome to you, Medea. It was quite a moment when you managed to infiltrate this NRA statement, as it was. What struck me as most ironic, of course, there he is talking about security, and you were able to get your way into his own little press event and make your protest known.
Well, that's right, Piers. But, you know, I went in prepared with a banner, but I wasn't necessarily going to pull it out because I naively thought that the NRA was going to make some concession. I thought they were going to say something like, yes, we understand that something needs to be done, and that's why we're supporting a ban on assault weapons, or something they were going to give us as the American people. And my jaw dropped when Wayne LaPierre started out swinging, saying that we need to put more guns on our streets. So I was as shocked as I think a lot of the reporters in the room at what the NRA had to say.
It was an extraordinary event. I mean, in a way, I was thinking to myself that it was so uncompromising. It was so lacking in any kind of compassion or or anything really, that I felt it could backfire pretty badly on the NRA, and that's why I'm curious how many of its membership actually go along with the sentiments that he expressed. What would you think?
Well, I don't know. So many of us are parents, Piers, and I can't imagine that parents want their kids to see armed security guards on their way to school every day. And these security guards would probably be private contractors with firms that are taking people that have been in combat overseas, have PTSD, could also snap. I mean, the more weapons around, the more unprotected I think our children are. So I hope it backfires, and I hope people saw that lack of compassion that you mentioned.
Thank you very much for joining me, Madeb. It was an extraordinary moment to watch your protest, and it went around the world. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. Next,
debating the NRA's plan with people from both sides, and later Cory Booker and others join me for my special debate on guns in America.
In this country, sadly, a callous, corrupt, and corrupting shadow industry that sells and stows violence against its own people through vicious, violent video games with names like Bulletstorm, Grand Theft Auto, Mortal Kombat, and Splatterhouse. And here's one. It's called Kindergarten Killers.
The NRA blaming video games for creating a culture of violence in America. Are video games ready to blame them? We'll get to that in a moment. First, joining me now is Republican strategist and gun owner Hogan Gidley. Welcome to you, Mr. Gidley. What was your reaction when you heard the address by Wayne LaPierre?
Yeah, I think the NRA missed a huge opportunity here. I mean, to come out in front of this and say, look, we want to be on the forefront of having this discussion. We definitely need to talk about guns, but we also need to talk about mental health issues. We need to talk about the parental involvement. We need to talk about a cultural decline. And let's have that discussion, because we are, as the NRA, we are for responsible gun ownership. This clearly was not responsible. We need to have that conversation, and we need to be out in front on this. And instead, I think they missed an opportunity here, blaming other people and really kind of drawing a line in the sand that did need to be drawn at this point.
You're a gun owner. Are you actually a member of the NRA yourself? Or?
I'm not. I support the NRA, but I'm not an NRA member, no, sir.
The relationship between an American and his or her gun is historic, and it's something that creates great passion. What is your view about the specific campaign which I have been pursuing, and the President's pursuing, and others are pursuing, which is not about banning guns, it's about banning assault weapons, getting the kind of weapons which can massacre school classrooms, these military-style machines, getting those off the streets?
Right. Well, when you had such a tragedy like we did, and it was such a dark day for this nation, I think those types of conversations, talking about assault weapon bans and things like that, need to be on the table. The fact of the matter is, if I went to the doctor and he said, you have cancer, and I said, how do I get rid of it? And he said, take these 2 aspirin. And I said, well, is this going to get rid of my cancer? And he says, no, but it'll make you feel better. What we can't afford to do is pass legislation that just makes us feel better. We actually have to do things that are meaningful, that will protect our citizenry, protect our children, and that's where the NRA kind of missed the boat on this. I think they could have come out and had that conversation.
Do you think assault weapons should be banned or not?
That's a good question. And the thing is, I'm not militant on it one way or the other. I'm willing to have the conversation. You obviously think they should be. Give me the statistics. Let's have the conversation. And I'm willing to come to the table and talk. But look,
let me give you
then I'm on the menu.
Let me give you some statistics. The particular assault weapon which massacred the children at Sandy Hook is the same one used at the Oregon shopping mall mass shooting and at Aurora in the movie theatre. It's an AR-15. It is a military-style machine gun. And those who say it isn't a machine gun have never seen it actually be modified and how it works. You can check it on YouTube. These things, when they're modified, can fire 4 to 6 bullets a second or 100 bullets in a minute. They can wipe out 100 people in less than a minute. So those are some statistics for you. What I never hear back from anyone that defends them is what other purpose can they possibly have than mass slaughter?
Right, well, that's the thing. If I owned one of those weapons and I had clips of 100 or clips of 30, kids wouldn't be in danger. But irresponsible people with them, obviously it makes the conversation different, because now we're talking about being able to mow down a number of people in a matter of seconds, and that's a serious, serious problem in the hands of someone who has a mental instability or who's just angry or should have no business owning a gun at all. Those are the conversation I myself as a Republican am willing to have with anybody. And those are the kinds of things I think we need to put on the table if we're going to have an honest discussion about how we protect this country moving forward.
Okay, Hogan Gidley, thank you very much.
Thank you, Piers. God bless.
Now I want to bring in CNN's Jeffrey Toobin and Antoine Pearman. He's the CEO of Gamer Fit Nation. Welcome to you both. Start with you, Jeffrey, if I may. I want to play a little bit of footage here. This is actually an AR-15. We found this on YouTube. A CNN colleague found it. And the point of playing this is that you can see the kind of weapon it is, particularly when they get modified, that they are military assault weapons. I mean, these are behaving like machine guns. The NRA and other gun rights lobbyists would have us believe these are single-shot, semi-automatic, relatively harmless kind of hunting rifles. But that footage, which, and by the way, there's numerous examples like that on the internet, shows you what they really are when they're in the wrong hands.
Well, not only that, I mean, as we saw in the news conference by Wayne LaPierre today, they don't think banning any sorts of guns are the problem. They think there are monsters out there, as he said, but it's okay for the monsters to buy weapons as long as the good guys have weapons too. That's the solution to their problem. So however many bullets you can fire at once, machine gun, submachine gun, that's all fine. It's as long as the good guys have guns, we're safe.
I mean, the more guns America has, the more gun murders occur. In Japan, where they have almost zero guns, they have almost zero gun murders. And the parallels are there all around the world. I don't get why the NRA can get away with statements like this, and there isn't just a huge outcry.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think things have changed somewhat. They remain a very powerful group. They're speaking to a constituency that really believes in their message, and historically, at least, you cross the NRA at your peril as a politician. They have a great deal of money. They have a great deal of influence. Politicians care deeply about getting a high rating from the NRA. It could be that Newtown marks a turning point, but it also could be that it doesn't, and that's why you have not seen a huge rush of politicians to embrace gun control in the past week.
It's an interesting reaction today. Michael Steele, the former head of the RNC, called the NRA statement very haunting and very disturbing. He's actually an NRA supporter. Michael Bloomberg said it's beyond belief, following the Newtown tragedy, the NRA leaders want to fill our communities with guns and arm more Americans. Let me turn to you, Antoine. The one thing he did say, which some people thought was actually a point worth making, is the possible association of violent video games to a disturbed mind and this leading to some kind of desire to do what they see in the games for real. You have this website, which is very popular with gamers. What is your view about that?
I don't see how video games can contribute to violence in that manner, especially when most video games emulate real life. And what they emulate is soft compared to what's actually happening in the real world. I mean, today hearing him speak about what he said, I just thought it was just a really horrible joke, because it's ridiculous.
I mean, I've seen some video games which are pretty violent, and I could imagine if you were disturbed and you're alone, like this misfit character, Adam Lanza, and you're down in your underground room and that's all you're doing all day. You know, I spoke to my 12-year-old son about this, who plays a lot of these games. And he said that a lot of his friends play them perfectly happily, but some of them he sees get quite obsessed. They have the headphones on all the time, they're playing them far too much, and he said he sees them become aggressive. And I thought that was a very interesting insight from a young guy who enjoys these games and has no problem, that he could see people of a certain mentality, perhaps, getting angry and aggressive.
All right. Well, I can see where people might get, you know, aggressive as far as playing. I mean, because you get into that mode. But that's almost with every, you know, any sport, anything you get into. People get into it. It's competition. You know, you got the guy on the other side coming at you. You're going at him. But at the end of the day, it's all said and fun. You can get up, walk away. It's over. Whereas with, you know, what they're trying to imply, they're trying to say that you get up, walk away, and then you go outside and kill people. And that's not what gaming does.
I mean, the real issue is probably, Jeff, isn't it? Just finally, it's probably the mental health issue and guns. I mean, you know, it's basically those two things have got to be tackled head on.
Absolutely. I mean, there is a legitimate question to be asked about what effect these games have on people, and there are going to be studies of that, and I think that's a legitimate subject to study. But we know that a Bushmaster rifle killed these kids. We know that for sure. We don't know if video games had anything to do with it. So why do you start with some mysterious hypothetical causation rather than the actual cause of these children's death? I mean, I think that's if you're going to choose between those two, a certain cause and a possible cause, you start with a certain cause.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much indeed.